4 players that the Indiana Fever should core to make sure that no team can touch them heading into the expansion draft. Remember, you just lose these players straight up. You don't get anything back for the players. They're gone. We didn't get anything for Temi, did we? No, exactly.
The Indiana Fever have captured everyone's attention, dominating both headlines and social media conversations. Everywhere you look, their name echoes in discussions. Sports bars hum with arguments about their direction. Podcasts analyze every detail. Twitter erupts after each game. But what if the real story isn't unfolding on the hardwood? What if all the victories, defeats, and highlight plays we've been watching are nothing more than a carefully designed diversion from the true chaos brewing behind closed doors? Beyond the bright lights, post-game interviews, and perfectly managed press conferences, rumors of a divided locker room have turned into a deafening roar that can no longer be dismissed as baseless gossip. Now, with the swift and deliberate removal of 4 players in a short span, it appears head coach Stephanie White has finally executed her plan, one that might have been crafted months ago. But was this a matter of roster strategy and purposeful team development? The kind of difficult choices that every championship-caliber organization must face? Or was it an urgent attempt to seize control of a squad dangerously close to implosion? A final effort to rescue a season that seemed to be falling apart. The basketball community has watched with equal parts intrigue, concern, and grim fascination as the Fever's internal conflicts have started spilling into public view. What began as faint whispers in arena hallways and unverified tips from unnamed insiders has now exploded into a full-scale organizational crisis, one that threatens to derail what many believed would be a season of transformation for the franchise. The question everyone's asking is simple, yet powerful. What really went down in Indianapolis? To truly grasp the chaos now gripping the team, we have to look back. The Indiana Fever weren't always trapped in turmoil. Only a few years ago, they stood among the league's elite franchises, a benchmark for stability and professionalism. Championship banners proudly hung in their arena. Their fans were loyal, fiery, and devoted. But time is ruthless in professional sports, and the Fever soon faced the same truth every great organization must confront: rebuild or fade into obscurity. The choice to hire Stephanie White wasn't made in haste. The front office carried out detailed interviews, sought guidance from league veterans, and poured over countless hours of game film from her previous coaching tenures. White arrived with an accomplished track record, having earned success across multiple levels of basketball. She understood the Indiana culture, having played and coached there before. She was viewed as the perfect leader to restore the grit, discipline, and defensive mindset that once defined Fever basketball. At the same time, the franchise made another game-changing decision: drafting a generational talent. When Caitlin Clark's name echoed through the arena on draft night, the crowd erupted in pure euphoria. Fans saw the spark of hope, the media saw instant headlines, and the front office saw dollar signs: jersey sales, ticket surges, national broadcasts, and massive revenue potential. Clark embodied everything modern basketball celebrates: dynamic, unpredictable, creative, and completely mesmerizing to watch. But here's what almost no one stopped to consider in those blissful moments. What happens when you pair a coach built on structure with a player who thrives in beautiful chaos? What happens when you center your franchise around a superstar, yet bring in a coach who rejects the very idea of superstar privilege? The seeds of this ongoing crisis were planted in those very choices, decisions that seemed brilliant at the time, but were destined to collide. The warning signs existed all along if you knew where to look. Subtle at first, but growing louder and clearer with each passing week. Seasoned reporters and league insiders, the ones who've covered the WNBA long enough to sense when something is off, had begun to notice the quiet signals long before the drama went public. To the casual fan watching at home, it just looked like a team trying to find rhythm, going through the normal growing pains of adapting to new talent and new systems, and adapting to a new system. Every franchise experiences this phase, right? Fresh players need time to absorb the playbook. Chemistry doesn't form overnight. Coaches must experiment with rotations and learn their personnel. These are the soothing explanations front offices offer anxious fans, the comforting lines that dominate post-game press conferences after tough defeats. But those with real insight into the organization, those who witnessed practices and spoke privately with people close to the team, described something far more alarming: a deep clash of philosophies and playing styles that was slowly ripping the team apart. Stephanie White, known across the basketball world for her strict, defense-first mentality and no-nonsense leadership, now found herself coaching a roster filled with some of the league's most electrifying offensive players. Her track record reflects discipline, structure, and a meticulous possession-by-possession mindset that has defined her entire coaching journey. She prioritizes defense, forcing opponents to battle for every basket. She values offensive systems built on precision and defined roles. She believes in order, authority, and respect for hierarchy. But this wasn't just a minor difference in coaching, strategy, or a tactical adjustment that could be fixed through compromise or flexibility. This had become a battle for the very soul of the team, a full-blown, philosophical war unfolding daily in practices. And film rooms across Indianapolis. It was old school clashing with new school, discipline against freedom, tradition facing innovation. And like every war, this one was destined to leave casualties in its wake. The tension was unmistakable to anyone observant enough to notice. Body language during timeouts revealed a story of disconnection that words never could. Players nodded through defensive talks, going through the motions of listening, yet exchanged quick glances during offensive sets. Silent signals that spoke volumes. It was visible in the subtle sighs when certain plays were called, in the quiet headshakes when a teammate took a shot outside the system. The energy on the bench swung unpredictably, from bursts of excitement to eerie silence, revealing a team that was anything but united. One moment, everyone would rise and cheer after a brilliant defensive stop. The next, half the bench would sit motionless during an offensive highlight, offering only minimal applause. Veterans who had spent years in the league recognized exactly what was happening. They'd seen dysfunctional teams before and knew the warning signs. Sources close to the organization started leaking accounts of fiery confrontations behind closed doors, players dividing into rival groups, and a coaching staff desperately trying to retain control. One insider described a practice where White repeatedly stopped play to correct offensive spacing, only for a player to snap back that the so-called wrong spacing had produced an open shot. Another recalled a film session where the team was visibly split. Some players in front nodding at White's points, others slumped in the back, arms folded, completely disengaged. The front office tried to contain the turmoil by holding private meetings with key players, bringing in sports psychologists to manage locker room tension, and even consulting with other WNBA coaches on how to handle dominant personalities. But like cracks spreading through a dam, the truth eventually leaked out. It was inevitable that something would break. The pressure building inside the team was bound to explode into public view, in a way no PR statement could cover or explain away. As the season rolled on, the inner conflict started showing in plain sight. The Fever's on-court performance became a reflection of the storm brewing behind the scenes. Brilliant one night, baffling the next. One game, they looked like a juggernaut, locking down opponents with stifling defense and executing crisp, efficient offense. The next, they unraveled completely, struggling against teams they should have beaten easily. The inconsistency wasn't just statistical, it was emotional. You could feel it in their body language, in the way frustration lingered longer after timeouts, in the silence that sometimes followed mistakes. Post-game interviews turned into quiet chess matches between truth and diplomacy. Stephanie White would emphasize commitment to the system and doing things the right way. Thinly veiled frustrations aimed at players unwilling to conform. Players, in turn, spoke about finding rhythm and learning to play together. Coded language for a team wrestling with identity and trust. Soon, the media began connecting the dots. Questions about team chemistry and coaching philosophy grew sharper, less forgiving. Social media only poured gasoline on the fire. Cryptic tweets, subtle likes, and untagged posts hinted at internal divides. Fans, journalists, and even rival players began speculating openly about whether the Fever were fighting harder with each other than with their opponents. The